Have you ever woken from a dream so vivid, so bizarrely symbolic, that it clung to you for the rest of the day, feeling less like a random firing of neurons and more like a secret message from a hidden part of yourself? Or perhaps you've taken a personality test, like the popular Myers Briggs, and felt a jolt of recognition as it described you as an introvert or an extrovert, giving a name to a fundamental part of your nature. Maybe you've experienced a moment of pure, uncanny coincidence thinking of a long-lost friend seconds before they called and wondered if the universe was trying to tell you something. These experiences, which hover at the edge of our rational, everyday lives, are not just modern curiosities. They are, in fact, the battleground for one of the most dramatic and consequential intellectual breakups of the 20th century. This was not a clash over money or romance, but over the very nature of the human soul. It was a fight between two titans of thought whose partnership promised to revolutionize our understanding of the mind, but whose spectacular fallout created the world of psychology we know today. This is the story of Sigmund Freud, the stern, cigar-smoking father of psychoanalysis, and his chosen heir, the brilliant and visionary Carl Jung. It's the story of a father and a son, a king and a crown prince, whose intellectual love affair and bitter divorce would forever split our understanding of who we are. Are we merely the products of our personal, repressed desires, or are we connected to something far older, deeper, and more mysterious? Their epic fight broke psychology in two, and in doing so, gave us the tools to explore not just our minds, but our myths, our dreams, and our deepest spiritual longings. To understand the rupture, we must first appreciate the bond. In the early 1900s, Vienna was the world's intellectual crucible, and Sigmund Freud was its self-appointed king. He had single-handedly carved out a new continent of the mind, the unconscious. With theories that were as scandalous as they were brilliant, Freud proposed that our conscious selves are merely the tip of a vast, submerged iceberg. Beneath the surface, he argued, lies a turbulent sea of repressed memories, forbidden desires, and primal urges, all of which dictate our behavior in ways we cannot comprehend. His master key to unlocking this hidden world was the concept of libido, a relentless, primarily sexual, energy that drove human development from infancy. Concepts like the Oedipus complex, where a child harbors unconscious desires for one parent and jealousy toward the other, sent shockwaves through the conservative society of his time. Freud was a revolutionary, but he was also becoming isolated, his ideas largely confined to a small circle of Jewish doctors in Vienna. He needed an heir, a brilliant disciple who could carry the banner of psychoanalysis to the wider world and protect it from its many critics. Then, in 1907, Carl Jung walked into his life. A tall, charismatic Swiss psychiatrist from Zurich, Jung was everything Freud was not. He was younger, from a Christian background, the son of a pastor. No lessened, his reputation was already formidable. When they finally met in Freud's Vienna apartment, the connection was electric. A conversation planned for a few hours famously stretched into 13, a marathon of intellectual fervor. Freud was mesmerized. He saw in Jung not just a brilliant mind, but the perfect successor, the crown prince, who could legitimize his movement and ensure its legacy. He wrote to a colleague, proclaiming Jung was a man of the future. For his part, Jung was deeply impressed by Freud's genius, seeing him as a father figure who had courageously charted the dark territories of the human psyche. A powerful alliance was forged, built on mutual admiration and a shared mission to map the soul. But the intellectual honeymoon was destined to be short-lived. Beneath the surface of their mutual respect, a fundamental fault line began to tremble, one that would soon erupt into an unbridgeable chasm. The first major point of contention was that very engine of the psyche, libido. For Freud, the term was specific and unwavering. It was sexual energy, plain and simple. He believed this drive was the primary motivator behind nearly all human behavior, from the loftiest artistic creation to the most debilitating neurosis. To challenge this was to challenge the very cornerstone of psychoanalysis. Jung, however, found this definition suffocatingly narrow. Drawing from his own clinical work and his fascination with world cultures, he began to see a different kind of energy at play. He proposed that libido was not just sexual, but a generalized psychic energy, a universal life force that fuels our drive for growth, meaning, and self-realization. For Jung, this energy could manifest as ambition, creativity, or spiritual yearning just as easily as it could sexual desire. Where Freud saw a specific biological drive, Jung saw a vast, undifferentiated river of psychic potential. This was a serious disagreement, but it was nothing compared to the schism that followed. It concerned the nature of the unconscious itself. Freud's unconscious, for all its power, was fundamentally personal. You can imagine it as a dark, locked basement in your own private house. It's where you store your repressed memories, your secret shames, your childhood traumas. Its contents are unique to your life story. Jung did not deny the existence of this personal basement. But through his study of myths, fairy tales, and the dreams of his patients, he became convinced that beneath it lay something far older and more profound. He believed that if you dug deep enough into any individual's psyche, you would break through the floor of the personal basement and discover a level that connects all of humanity. He called it the collective unconscious. This was his revolutionary idea that we are all born with a shared, inherited psychic foundation, a repository of the accumulated experiences of our species. It is filled with archetypes, universal, primordial patterns, and images. These are the blueprints of the soul, the hero, the shadow, our dark side, the wise old man, the great mother, the trickster. These archetypes, Jung argued, are why cultures all over the world, separated by vast oceans and millennia, developed such strikingly similar myths, religions, and symbols. They are the innate grammar of the human spirit. For Freud, the psyche was a personal history book. For Jung, it was a library containing the epic story of all humankind. This theoretical chasm bled directly into their views on the most profound human experiences, religion, and spirituality. Freud, a staunch atheist and a man of the Enlightenment, viewed religion as a grand illusion, a universal obsessional neurosis that humanity needed to outgrow. For him, myths were distorted relics of infantile wishes, and God was a projection of an idealized father figure. To seek meaning in the mystical was a retreat from the harsh realities of science and reason. This was utter heresy to Jung. As the son and grandson of pastors, and a man who had his own powerful, numinous experiences, he believed the spiritual impulse was a vital and natural part of the human psyche. He argued that mythology and religion were the soul's natural language, the primary way the collective unconscious communicates its wisdom through archetypal stories. For Jung, to dismiss the sacred was to sever a connection to the deepest, most healing parts of ourselves. A life devoid of myth and symbol was a life impoverished. The breaking point was no longer a matter of if, but when. The defining moment, a wound from which their relationship would never recover, came during their 1909 voyage to America. To pass the time, they analyzed each other's dreams, the very practice at the heart of their work. Jung openly shared his dreams, but when it was Freud's turn, he recounted a dream and then suddenly refused to offer the personal associations required for a full interpretation. When a puzzled Jung asked why, Freud delivered a line that would haunt Jung forever. "I cannot risk my authority." In that single breathtaking statement, the relationship was fractured. For Jung, the search for truth was paramount and required vulnerability from all. But Freud had placed himself above the process, transforming from a fellow explorer into an infallible pontiff. The father had chosen power over truth, authority over intimacy. The trust was gone. The resentment festered until it erupted publicly with Jung's publication of Symbols of Transformation. In this monumental book, Jung laid out his new vision of the psyche, reinterpreting myths through the lens of archetypes and a universal life force, a direct and devastating assault on Freud's core tenets. The letters that flew between them, once filled with paternal warmth and filial devotion, turned icy and sharp. Freud accused Jung of betrayal. Jung accused Freud of tyranny. Finally, in a cold, formal letter in 1913, Jung officially resigned from the Psychoanalytic Association and severed their personal ties. The most promising intellectual partnership in psychology was over, ending not with a handshake, but with the slam of a door. The break was absolute and brutal. For Freud, it was the ultimate betrayal, a painful reenactment of a son turning against the father. He moved to solidify his own doctrines, excommunicating those who strayed from his theories and creating a rigid orthodoxy around psychoanalysis. His legacy became foundational, clinical, and profoundly influential. The language of Freudian thought, the ego, repression, defense mechanisms, the Freudian schleifas so deeply permeated our culture that we use it without a second thought. He gave us the talking cure, the couch, and the framework for modern therapy, forever changing how we treat mental suffering. For Jung, the break sent him into a terrifying and profoundly creative tailspin. Cut off from his mentor and the movement he was meant to lead, he turned inward, embarking on what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. For several years, he withdrew from the public eye and allowed the visions, dreams, and figures from his own psyche to surface. He recorded this harrowing journey in his legendary Red Book, a massive, illustrated manuscript filled with dazzling mandalas and dialogues with archetypal figures. It was from this crucible of self-exploration that his own school, analytical psychology, was truly born. And what a legacy it became. While Freud's name is more famous, Jung's ideas have arguably seeped even more deeply and broadly into the fabric of modern life, often in ways we don't even recognize. His theories on psychological types gave us the concepts of introversion and extroversion, which are now the bedrock of countless personality systems, most notably the Myers Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. His work on archetypes was famously adopted by the mythologist Joseph Campbell to create the hero's journey, a narrative structure you now see in nearly every blockbuster film, from Star Wars to The Matrix. His concept of synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that hint at a hidden order in the universe, has become a cornerstone for New Age spirituality and anyone seeking meaning beyond pure chance. The epic fight between Freud and Jung was not a failure, it was a necessary schism. It was the explosive birth of two distinct ways of seeing the human soul. Freud gave us a map of our personal, psychological earth, the history, the traumas, and the desires that make us who we are. But Jung gave us a telescope, inviting us to look beyond our personal world to the cosmos of shared myth, symbol, and spirit that connects us all. Their breakup fractured the field of psychology, but in doing so, it vastly expanded its territory, leaving us with a richer, more complex, and ultimately more complete picture of ourselves. And it leaves us with the enduring question they wrestled with until their final days. Is the human mind a closed system, a biological machine to be understood and repaired? Or is it a doorway, an opening onto a reality far more ancient, vast, and mysterious than we can ever imagine?